Hi guys, today we're talking about shin splints. Now, whether you're a social runner and you're just running for fun or fitness, or you're a professional running in competitions, you've probably heard about shin splints. Maybe there's someone you know who's had them, maybe you have them right now and you want to do something about it, or maybe you want to prevent yourself from getting them because you've heard how bad they are. I'm so glad you found this video because this is a must watch for you. Now, I've had a background in athletics, I've done lots and lots of years of running in my time, and I myself have battled shin splints. So the information I'm going to be sharing with you is not only from my personal experience of overcoming shin splints, but also that of my clients and what exercises I've been prescribing to them. So I'm going to cover my top tips to not only help you relieve shin splint pain, but to also prevent shin splints happening in the first place. Now, before we get started, make sure you hit subscribe. I'm going to be releasing a new YouTube every week covering brand new tips and tutorials, workouts, yoga, and of course some life hacks in there as well. So hit that subscribe button and let's get into this video. So what are shin splints? Now, shin splints are also known as medial tibial stress syndrome, and when you get them, you're probably feeling pain on the inside or the medial side of your shin. Now, when it starts, it's usually a tingling sensation that will progressively get worse into a sharp pain in that connection between calf and shin bone. Now, there are a lot of different causes to shin splints, but some of these might be poor footwear or poor running shoes, poor running technique, a sudden increase in your running load, or a different style of running that you've incorporated into your training. Now, these things can start to cause more stress on our calf muscles. Now, we actually have two calf muscles. We've got the gastrocnemius, so it's the big meaty one that sits on top, higher up into our calves. And then we've got the soleus, which sits underneath that gastrocnemius and connects right into that mid-shin region, usually where we're experiencing all of that shin splint pain. Now, when the soleus gets really tight, this starts to inflame that connection between muscle and bone, and this is why we're experiencing pain. So now that you know what's causing your shin splint pain, let me take you through my top 6 tips and exercises that are going to help you not only relieve that pain and pressure happening between the calf and the shin, but also help you prevent experiencing shin splints in the future. Tip number 1, minimize the stress being put on your calves and on your shins. Now, for some of you, this might be really hard because it means that you need to stop running or reduce your running at least for a week or 2 for your shins to recover. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to stop your training altogether. See if you can substitute it with something else, something like swimming, water running, or even cycling. So just a little side note here, and this is an important factor because I see it quite regularly when it comes to shin splints, and that is your shoes. Now, we want to make sure your running shoes fit correctly, not only in the length, but also in the width. We want our forefoot or the front of our foot to be able to spread out through our shoe, so that gives us more support when we're running. If the front of our foot is condensed and tight, we're going to have more stress in the calf, and this is going to cause more stress in our shin splints. Now, secondly, we want to make sure we're getting new shoes quite regularly. Now, I know shoes can be expensive, but they lose their support and their ability to absorb force quite quickly. So if you're running on your shoes regularly, let's say once a day, we should be changing them every 3 to 6 months, just depending on their quality. So now that you've minimized the stress on your calves and shins and maybe even thought about getting some new shoes, let's move on to my second tip, and this is improving our ankle mobility and in particular, stretching our calves. Now remember, if our calves get overloaded, they can get tight and start to pull on the back of our shin bone, causing that pain. So the more calf stretching you can incorporate, the better you are going to be feeling and the quicker you're going to recover from your shin splints. So as you can see here, there are a few examples of some of the calf stretches you can incorporate either on the ground or up onto a level. Now, if you want to stretch the gastrocnemius, remember that's that higher calf muscle, you want to do that with a straight leg. If we want to get more into the soleus, so this is the muscle that causes all that shin splint pressure, then we want to bend that knee and feel the stretch lower down into the calf. Now, it's a great idea to incorporate stretching as frequently as you can. So whether that be before your training, after your training, and then eventually when you do start running again, before running or after running, you're really going to notice that difference. Now, you want to incorporate stretching as much as you can, especially if you're experiencing quite severe shin splint pain. Now, because you might not be running as much, it's a good idea to try and stretch twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. And then when you do begin to incorporate running again, making sure you're stretching before you run and also after your run. Now, we should be aiming to hold our stretches for 10 nice long deep breaths. Not only does this help us time our stretch instead of looking at our watches, but it also helps our body relax into the stretch and really help to improve the flexibility in our calves. Moving on to tip number 3, and this is releasing the arches of our feet. Now, this is really important because the arches of our feet, also known as the plantar fascia, are actually connected to our calves and all the way up our back chain, so into our hamstrings, our glutes, and our lower back. So if we can release the arches of our feet, this is going to relieve the pressure that we're experiencing in the calves. Now, all you need to do this is a nice firm ball. So you can use something like a professional trigger ball, like what I have, or you can use something like a hockey ball, or even better, because it is a little bit smaller, a golf ball. So all you need to do is place the ball underneath the arch of your foot. You can do this sitting down or standing up, and we're going to roll the ball up and down the arch. Now, it might feel a little bit gritty and uncomfortable to start off with, so make sure you just apply a little bit of pressure, and then as your arch begins to release and it becomes a little bit more comfortable, you can apply as much or as little pressure as you like. Now, if you don't have a trigger ball that you can use, don't worry, I have a backup stretch for you. Now, all you need to do is sit into a kneeling position, sitting onto your heels with your toes curled under. Now, at the beginning, this might feel a little bit uncomfortable on the toes, so just start nice and easy. You can lean forward, and then as you become more comfortable, you can begin to lean back and apply more of a stretch into the arch of the foot. Again, we should be aiming to hold this for 10 nice long deep breaths. Tip number 4, massage. Now, this sounds nice, but unfortunately it doesn't feel great, but I promise your shin splints will feel a whole lot better after this. So all you need to do for this one, you can actually come into a sitting position just like I am, crossing over your legs. So you can do this in front of the TV at night, after your session, when you're just relaxing, chilling out. It's nice and easy. Just put a little bit of moisturizer onto your hands, especially onto your thumb, and we want to rub that thumb down the inside of our shin. So you've probably felt the spots that you're most sore. You can spend a little bit of time in those spots. Now, if your thumb does start to fatigue, you can grab that trigger ball and again do the same thing, rubbing that ball up and down the inside of your shin. So this is going to help to release that calf to bone connection and hopefully release some of that pain as well. Tip number 5, strengthen your glutes. Now, this tip is so important because it's one of my preventative exercises. You might not feel the pain relief in your shins instantly, but I promise in the long run, this will make the biggest difference. Now, we all have different running styles, and some of these running styles can cause extra stress and tension in our calf muscles. So what we want to do is strengthen up and activate through our glute muscles so these muscles can take on some of that tension. Now, remember, running is a repetitive action, so you can only imagine how much stress your calves must be going through if they are taking all of that tension. So what we want to do is incorporate glute strength building exercises into our weekly routine. Here are some of my favorite glute exercises. The first one is a kneeling fire hydrant. So we're just lifting the knee out as high as we can without moving the pelvis. So we want to keep the torso and the hips as stable as possible. Exercise number 2 is a kneeling fire hydrant circle. So very similar to the first exercise, but this time we're going to be drawing nice big circles with our knees. Again, we want to keep our torso and our hips nice and stable. You can also do this exercise in reverse. Exercise number 3 is a side plank clam. So we're focusing on keeping the feet together as we push the knees apart and lift the hips. Now, this is one of my favorite go-to exercises because it's nice and easy and you really feel that glute burn. These exercises are great to do before or after your run. If you're going to do them before your run, use them as a little bit of a glute activation exercise, making sure that your glutes are ready to go for your run. We want to aim for about 10 reps of each exercise and maybe 2 to 3 rounds through. If you're going to do these exercises after your run, you can actually do a few more reps here, so aiming for 15 to 20 and again doing 2 to 3 rounds through. Moving on to my final tip, number 6, and that is strengthening our feet. Now, this is another one of my preventative exercises, so an important exercise to incorporate into your weekly routine. Now, we want to try and build up the strength in our feet so that can relieve the pressure in our calves. So think about how often our feet are in shoes. This is why our foot muscles are so prone to becoming weak. I really encourage you to try and get your feet out of your shoes at least once or twice a week, where you can do something like barefoot walking on the grass, maybe even walking on soft sand, or doing your next bodyweight exercise session with bare feet instead of wearing your shoes. So there you have it, guys. I hope these tips are not only going to help you relieve that shin splint pain, but also prevent you from getting shin splints in the future. Now, I really encourage you to incorporate these exercises into your regular training routine, not only when you're recovering from shin splints, but also in the future. They are a great injury prevention technique and a great way to improve your running style and make you more efficient at running. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you want to see more from me, hit subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me, guys, and I'll see you next time.